Disclaimer: this interview is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. If you are facing a board complaint, consult with an attorney who specializes in professional licensure defense.
Welcome to Advanced Nurses. We connect with nurses who inspire other nurses by sharing their experiences. And so we're able to bring that information to you. Hi, I am the educational consultant with Advanced Nurses at ACD Front, and today I have the pleasure of meeting with Nurse Stephie, so that's her handle, but Stephanie Skipper, who is the owner of The Body RN. And she is going to share with us, first of all, how she transitioned into this non-traditional area of nursing, what made her do this. You guys know that I'm all about nurses doing something else, right? Because we already know if you ain't at the table, you're on the menu. Mm-hmm. And a lot of us, we stick around in these hospitals and nursing homes so long that we don't really even understand how to do anything besides take orders from either doctors or people in admin who don't know anything about what we do. So her story hit so close to home. I wanted to make sure that on this platform that you were actually getting to hear her story and getting to see some of more aspects, maybe some things that were already covered in previous interviews, but also definitely something that's just unique to our platform here. So thank you again, Nurse Stephie, for your time. Do you prefer me to call you Nurse Stephie, Stephanie? Skipper is the cutest name for you. When I seen your Instagram pictures, I said Skipper. I said she probably spent her whole life telling people, hey, don't call me Skipper.
No, that's what a lot of people call me. High school, nursing school. That's most people call me that. So.
Yeah, because you are so cute. So like you went into the perfect industry. I was like, she's like a walking billboard for her company.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. So first of all, tell me, what made you transition into this area of nursing?
So I worked throughout the pandemic, and I was able to make hundreds of thousands of dollars in a very short amount of time. And I felt like I needed to figure out some type of business or some way to invest this so that this money would not just be wasted and I wouldn't blow it on something. So while I was trying to figure that out, I was like, let me just go ahead and slide to Miami for a little plastic surgery. So that's what I did. And me being ignorant to this industry, I had no idea that you didn't have medical support after you have these surgeries. So I was in Miami. I was terrified. I was passing out. I passed out 3 times in the 2 days after my surgery. I was draining. I didn't have drains inserted. I had open wounds that were just pouring out all day long. So I was very concerned. It was scary. And fortunately, I was able to heal without any major complications. And after I was recovered, I started to take classes on this industry because I felt like there was a massive gap in access to healthcare and support after these surgeries. And I took class after class. I spent about $20,000 to $25,000 on my education just for that. But again, it was the pandemic, so $20,000 back then was a little different than $20,000 now. So I was able to invest in my education, and then I was able to start my business. And then I ended up falling in love with it because you get to see people go from being very unsure, very nervous, so much anxiety, because a lot of us, when we have surgery is our first surgery. So you don't know what to expect. So many things are happening. There's a psychological component to this as well. It's a mental and a physical journey is what I tell people before they have surgery. And I wanted to feel that need, and I didn't want anyone to feel the fear that I felt after my surgery. So that's how I started. And I love it. My clients love me. I'm supported. I'm just appreciated. I don't have to deal with the hospital foolishness, the hospital politics, you being put in unsafe situations as a nurse simply because of where you work. I don't have to deal with any of that. So it was perfect for me. I love it.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. When you said that, I could just see you beaming because this is still a space that you are really excited about being in, and everything you said is so on point. because I can tell you when I had my procedure, it was the first procedure I ever had. I was very nervous. I was very actually, no, scratch that. I just remembered it wasn't my first procedure. I had a C-section. I had an emergency C-section because them fools was playing with me at the hospital, and that's actually what drove me to getting the procedure, because that area of my body was just like it almost felt like it was like lifeless, my lower stomach area. So I remember when I met with the surgeon, I was so nervous. I was nervous about the consultation, and the day before the surgery, I just remember my nerves just being all over the place. Worst thing you can ever do to anybody listening, please do not search on no damn YouTube about what could go wrong, because you're going to find what you're looking for. I found every video about this one who died on the table, that one who bled too much, this one who had to go back and get more plastic surgery. So after my plastic surgery, I was like, I'm going to stay in the gym. I'm going to work out, because I'm like, I don't want to get it again, because if you put the weight back on and you go get another surgery, then you're going to have scar tissue, and then that's how people get die. I mean, like, just spending too much time Googling what could go wrong. So right. I know exactly where you're coming from when you're talking about like relieving people's anxieties. Because it's a procedure. Yeah, it's an elective procedure. No, it's not something that you have to have. But if you're going to have it, you definitely want to make sure that you have somebody giving you feedback, and not on Google and not on ChatGPT. Right. Like literally spending time talking to a professional who can tell you really what to do. And unlike a lot of stuff that we can use AI for, this ain't one. You really need a professional who understands this space, and again, the anatomy of the body, how the body works. Like you said about diet, you gotta stay away from the salty foods, man. You'll blow up like a balloon. So
and it hurts.
Exactly. And that process too, a lot of people may not talk about this as much, but like I had the lightheaded feeling like maybe like 2 days after my procedure, and I just remember being in a lot of pain. I remember the day I told myself that I'm not going to take any more medication. Like I wasn't even taking ibuprofen. I was like, I'm just going to try to fight this out. So that whole process, I just remember maybe about 3 weeks or maybe about a month in, where I had like probably very little pain. But it's so, every walk, cough, bend, standing up from the toilet, man, you need somebody. Don't put your family through that, y'all. If y'all have a professional like Stephanie who can be around to give you guidance, because we're going to get into some stuff that you offer too as well, Stephanie, please rely on them. Do not put your family through hell because you want to be snatched. Okay.
Yeah.
That's that. So the other question I wanted to ask you is, because I want to get into what happened with this, the Board of Nursing in Maryland. So what happened when you received your first notification that something was, did you receive an email or anything, or was it just a manila folder?
So the first, what was the last thing you said?
Was it just the brown envelope? Please don't tell me that's how you learned.
That's how I learned that my license was suspended. Yes. But the first, it was another brown envelope that arrived. It was a subpoena. So I had a subpoena from the state of Maryland by way of the Board of Nursing, and they requested my patient records, social media accounts, pretty much everything related to my business. And I provided them everything that I had. I was called in for 2 interviews shortly after this. She filed her complaint in October of 2023, and I received a subpoena in January of 2024. And then I came in for an interview. My first interview, I believe, was in February. And then my second one was at the end of March. And then there was silence from the board. I heard nothing until I received another envelope the first week in August. And that envelope said, your license is suspended emergently. So you can't do anything to anyone. And if you touch anybody, your license will be revoked. And this was done without a hearing. There was no, I came home one day and that was in my mailbox. And this is while I'm in the middle of handling patients. And now I'm forced to abandon my patients. And there's no one comparable for me to refer them to. So that's how that happened. I had patients who experienced negative outcomes because they went from having care to no care. I had a woman in her 50s who I was taking care of. This is her second surgery. She had lipo the first time, and then she came in for her tummy tuck during this one. And everything was fine. She's looking good, feeling good. And then this happened, and I told her I couldn't take care of her anymore. She had to find someone else in the community who was not licensed, who was not a nurse, who did not know what they were doing. And she suffered dehiscence. Her tummy tuck incision reopened because they weren't managing her swelling properly. And she has permanent scarring on her body as a result of this. But she's one of many people. But yeah, that's how I found out.
So let's just walk through what your first step was in addressing this matter, because I know eventually you wind up finding out about a fraudulent letter and all that kind of stuff, and it gets deep. So tell me, what was the first action, or at least what that communication looked like with the Board of Nursing?
So the first thing I did was give them everything they asked for. And then I was able to speak to my investigator. So when a complaint is filed against you and the board feels like you need to be investigated, they assign it to one person, and that's your investigator for your case. So that's who is asking for these things from me. That is who is communicating to me from the board. And I sent her a very long email explaining to her the situation. This is not a patient who submitted this complaint. This is a business competitor who has tried to extort me in writing. I came to the board prior to any complaint being filed to verify my scope. I'm very confused as to what is happening right now. Whatever you need, you can, here it is. I have a lot of clients who would also speak to you if you are interested in hearing from the people I actually care for. But what in their subpoena, it listed that it said I was incompetent, I was spreading infection, and that I had nurses working for me who weren't licensed. That was the first thing I did, was give them the licenses of all of us. I had no one. I would never, but I would never have someone working in a clinical setting who's not licensed. So I was able to give them the licenses of all three of the nurses who were working for me at the time, my license, of course, and I have a nursing assistant who was helping with smaller tasks, but everyone was licensed. So I just never thought that anything would truly come of this because we weren't doing anything wrong.
So, and I just want to get this because I really want to get this from my audience. You said that you had initially went to the board because you wanted to find out if what you were doing was within your scope in the state of Maryland. What was that like?
So before I started my business, and this is something else that I was able to pull as proof, because I had to prove to the board that I did what I was supposed to do as a nurse. Before I started this business, I was interested in offering like an IV hydration business, but the regulations don't really give you much to go. It doesn't give you much direction. So when it comes to that, so I had emailed them before I started this business, and before I started anything like that, I emailed them asking them for direction. Hey, I want to do this. This is the type of business I want to operate. What do I need to have in place? And their response is, we don't interpret the Nurse Practice Act. So if you ask the board for direction and to make sure that you're trying to do things correctly, they pretty much tell you, go read the Nurse Practice Act. We're not going to give you any more information. That's it. So when I got that response via email, I was like, okay, well, I don't feel comfortable with that. So I kind of just left it alone. Then I went and had my surgery done. Then it was like, oh, I really want to do this. And all I saw was massage therapists doing this. So I'm like, okay, this definitely will be within my scope, because it's probably below my scope because of who usually provides this service. So, I just never thought, I just never in a million years did I think that anything negative would come from this. But I did go to the board prior to starting my business and after receiving that threatening letter from her to verify that what I was doing, providing manual lymphatic drainage to people who have had recent surgery, was within my scope. And I was assured by the compliance manager for nursing practice for Maryland. I went there repeatedly and asked to speak to her specifically. I had to wait. I had to fill out a whole big long document about why I was there, give it to the people at the front. They went back and got her. She came out with her copy of the Nurse Practice Act. She said, you're not doing anything wrong, and to report her to the Board of Massage. So I was fully confident that I was within my scope because I just spoke to the one person in the whole state of Maryland who would know if I wasn't.
So when you went to this person and they gave you this information, I'm assuming that this is now in the fighting phase. This is where you're kind of trying to get clarity because this is post a subpoena. This is post.
This is before. She sent me 2 letters trying to extort me, pretty much saying, if you don't give me your curriculum, I'm going to report you to the Board of Nursing.
Happening before anything.
Yep.
So
3 times I was there in total, before and then twice after her letters. But I came there 3 times to verify that I was doing things correctly and within my scope. Absolutely.
And each time you're given reassurance that everything is fine. Nothing to see here.
Yep. When you call, no one answers. So I had to stop what I'm doing in my business, go across town to the Board of Nursing, wait there to speak to the person who's the compliance manager. When she comes out, she's kind of irritated. Like, why do you keep coming here? Like, she's kind of annoyed that I'm here again. But I'm like, I have everything invested in this. I need to know for sure. And she's like, you're good.
This is like a Lifetime movie. I'm so sorry. I keep throwing all these companies. I didn't say ChatGPT. I didn't say Google. Now I'm saying Lifetime. This is, I swear. So, okay.
And I was able to prove this. I was able to prove this in my hearing. I recorded myself walking into the Board of Nursing the times that I was going in there. So thank God I did that. So I knew the exact day and time that I was there. So I told them to pull the sign-in sheets from those 2 days. And my name is there at the times that I said I would be there. And I was there because I had questions. That's what I said. My reason for being there is because I have questions. I showed them this in the hearing. I knew the compliance managers. I described her physically, all the way down to her height. I knew her full name, her job title, what her internal copy of the Nurse Practice Act looks like. And I knew her height, her age, everything, her hair color, everything. And I told them all of this. And this is months after she and I had that conversation. And then we get to the hearing, because I subpoenaed her for the hearing as well. And then she says, I don't know how you know these things about me. I asked her, is any of this public knowledge? Is your face on the Board of Nursing's website? Is your name on the Board of Nursing's website? Is your office located in an area where you can see, somebody can walk in the building and see you? No. So then I asked her, how do I know these things about you if I didn't come here and have this conversation with you? And her answer was, I don't know.
Wow. So we already have that. Okay. So forget about the issues that Black nurses have to deal with just in being Black and nursing, right? So now you also have questionable incompetency going on with the Board of Nursing in Maryland. Okay. Here's the next question I want to ask you. All right. So now tell me, when did you now discover how deep the rabbit hole is actually going with this competitor? Because from what I've read and what I have listened to in research and preparation for this conversation with you, it gets very deep. It gets a bit on the psychotic side of things. And I think that, I think we're dealing with somebody who the elevator doesn't go all the way upstairs. So please tell me, how did we get to a place where we are now making up a university? I'm not going to get to the letter yet because I'm still shocked at making up the university, making up the overarching body, this all-seeing eye that is supposed to be on top of everything concerning post-op care gatekeeping. Please tell me how that happens and what that was like.
So during my suspension, because they just snatched my license, and then I went from having a lot of things to do to absolutely nothing to do, I decided to research her because I had never met her. That's another thing. I had never met this woman. This is someone I had never been in the same room with. And she did all of this simply because I was doing well in an industry that I'm supposed to be in, because these are surgical patients and I'm a nurse. But I spent the 9 months researching her. So I started to look into all of her different businesses. I saw that she had a regulatory body. I saw that these regulations were accredited and federally backed, because I saw the U.S. Department of Education seal on her site. And then she kept posting this accrediting body and saying that her educational products and her regulations are accredited through them. So I go to their website, and I used to work for the government. So I look at their website and automatically I'm like, something ain't right. Something ain't right with this. So I'm scrolling, I'm looking through things, I'm seeing similarities in the language between her stuff and this site. then I get to the contact info, and they had the same address and phone number. Her stuff and kids had the same address and phone number. So now I'm like, yeah, this math ain't math, and something is really wrong. So then I start to pull tax records. Or no, first thing I pulled was the articles of organization for her business and this. So I see that they had a LegalZoom agent as the resident agent for the accrediting body, and she's listed as the owner on the regulatory body. So LegalZoom, now it just feels like you're being sneaky, because I know the feds are never going to use LegalZoom for nothing, and they're not going to start an entity in Maryland. We're right next to DC. But so anyway, I'm like, okay, how else can I get to something about this? But she's always been about her money. She's always seemed to be like just always about her money. So I was like, you know what? She probably tried to file for tax exempt. So let me just go see if I can find that. And then I found that, and it had her listed as a founder of the accrediting body. So that is when I realized that all of this is fraud, because you're saying that you're accredited through this federal entity that you own, and this entity gave the authority and accreditation to your regulatory body and your university. So I figured she might come back with some lies and be like, no, we are accredited. So I took it even a step further. And then I contacted the U.S. Department of Education and the Council for Higher Education Accreditation. And these are the two entities that are responsible for providing accreditation at the federal level. And they responded in writing saying, we don't know who this is. This is fraud. Contact the FTC. She's not accredited, but she had their seal on their site, and on her site she had the U.S. Department of Education seal on her site. It said she was accredited through the U.S. Department of Education. And then I contact them, and they say, yeah, no, we don't know this person. Contact the FTC.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm used to getting interruptions from my son. He's one of those kids. So after, because this is, so let's start here.
Mm-hmm.
This is a fake accrediting body. She has a fake universe. Now, I want to understand, because I know some of this had came out too as well when you did your work, because I mean, you are a hell of an investigator, okay?
Thank you.
You are. I mean, I say you did your thing. But you got some people's money. They gave you nothing but time and passion. So there you go. So I'm just trying to understand, when she comes up, when she has this, because the balls that you have to make this kind of stuff up and put a government seal on a website. Are there students? So I know some of that I've seen. Okay. So how are her students responding to this?
Ooh, so the students are shocked, upset. Let me just get to the price point. These students pay on average anywhere between $5,000 and $12,000 for these classes, because she's telling them that because she's federally backed, that she can issue them a license. And it's not even that I'm one of the very few nurses who was even familiar with her stuff. She doesn't train nurses mostly. She usually trains phlebotomists, estheticians. And then she says, oh, well, I'm federally backed and I can give you a license to aspirate seromas, which is a medical procedure that is completely out of both of those scopes of practice. An esthetician can't break the dermis, and a phlebotomist, you enter a vessel and withdraw. You don't go into an area of the body blindly and withdraw whatever comes out on the other side. So these are both way outside of the scopes for these two professions. But she's telling them, oh, if you come and pay me this thousands of dollars, then I'll be able to board certify you and give you a license in this. And then you can perform this on all of your patients, because these people have businesses. They're not working in different companies. They have their own businesses with their own clientele. So each of her students, and there are hundreds of students. Each of her students have their own businesses with their own clientele. And some of them are under the impression and belief that they have a license that has extended their scope of practice to allow them to legally and safely perform medical procedures on people without any medical training or medical license. Yeah.
And you know what, it reminds me of like during the pandemic, and I'm just going to deviate for 1 second. It reminds me of during the pandemic where everybody was being told, oh, you got to learn coding. And there was all these boot camps all over the place. And all the fraudsters came out of the woodworks. Oh, I could teach you how to code in 2 months. I could teach you how to code in 1 month. I could teach you this and I could teach you that. And of course, you know, some folks, you know, of course, you're going to have some folks that's going to go along with it. You know, they don't know better, you know. For them, again, because this is such an untapped industry, I think it kind of opens it up for development good, which is a good thing, but it also opens it up to fraudsters. So you have people that's going to say, hey, you know, because if a fraudster is establishing both a university and overarching body and nobody else is coming up with this stuff, or maybe very few that we could barely recognize, they don't really have any competition. Most people are going to say, oh, I never knew that there was an overarching body. That person talks long enough, good enough, got enough promo, they in enough pictures with enough people. You're going to start thinking what they're saying is legit.
Yep. And that's what happened.
Even worse now that we have the assistance of AI, I could only imagine how dangerous folks like this are. So we're wrapping up here, and I want to ask you a question. So what would you say is some advice that you would give? And I don't want you to get into where you have shared already is enough. I am going to ask you about that letter because that will be my last question to you. But what advice would you give to a nurse who's interested in opening up this type of service now that you've been through this experience or going through this experience?
Oh, well, as long as you don't do it in Maryland, you're fine. So that's another thing with this whole situation. Our neighboring state is DC. DC actually has manual lymphatic drainage written in their regulations for nurses, and they rate it as a level 1. You don't even need to have written consent is what they have. You don't need written consent to do this. It is recommended, but it's not required. So you can fully do this in DC without any medical oversight, medical training. And the same is for Maryland. What the Board of Nursing charged me with doing is something called cellulite lymphatic drainage. The board can't take action against any nurse unless you violate something that's in their regulations. Manual lymphatic drainage, the service I provide, is not mentioned. But cellulite lymphatic drainage is. It's under the cosmetic procedure section, and it specifically says that you have to have medical oversight. You have to take education that includes pharmacology related to cellulite lymphatic drainage, and you have to have a doctor assess the patient right before and right after. The doctor has to create the care plan, like all these things. But that's not what I do. And also, the majority of people who do what I do are massage therapists, and they don't have this standard. So never did I think that I was ever outside of my scope. And I'm this whole thing about cellulite lymphatic drainage being the Board of Nursing said that when they wrote the regulations for cellulite lymphatic drainage, they likely meant to cover all lymphatic drainage. So they're saying that all lymphatic drainage, even manual, which is what I perform, is a cosmetic procedure that requires medical oversight, a doctor's order, specific education, etc. But that doesn't make any sense because we use manual lymphatic drainage in oncology nursing. We use it when people have teeth removed. It's used to address swelling, knee replacements, hip replacements, any type of surgery, lymphedema. This is the standard of care when you're addressing some type of issue that has to do with swelling. And the people who have cosmetic surgery have an enormous amount of swelling in the first 30 days. So that's what I do. I'm doing manual lymphatic drainage, not this cellulite stuff. And I've never offered cellulite. I've never, nothing. So honestly, the recommendation that I have for nurses who want to get in this industry is just don't do it in Maryland. And also look at the regulations for your own states, because like I said, we share a border with, I can drive to DC and be there in 45 minutes. DC has us listed as a level 1, very low risk service, not a cosmetic procedure, nothing invasive. And there's no medical oversight required. And they don't even require you to have written consent from the patient beforehand.
Wow.
Yeah.
So my last official question will be asking about what you're doing now and how people can contact you, and if you're providing any kind of consultation or educational services for nurses who are interested in transitioning into this space. But before we get there, my second to last question here is about that letter.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So you want
Do you want to start? Do you want to start at how the letter impacted your case, or do you want to start at how you found out how fugazi the letter was?
So we could get them both. So
Okay.
I didn't know anything about this letter until we asked for discovery, which is because I did hire a lawyer, but I ended up firing her because these lawyers are afraid of the board. She's like, well, they have all these charges against you. You really should take a deal. A deal? I didn't do any of this. I'm not. So I got tired of fighting her and the board, so I ended up firing her. But before I fired her, we had to go through discovery, which is when the board sends us everything that they have against me, and we provide everything that we have to defend me. And when we did that exchange, that was the first time that I knew anything of a letter being attached to this complaint. And then I asked my lawyer, I was like, well, did anybody contact this doctor? Because I don't think a doctor would jeopardize everything he's built to write a letter to attack a nurse in Maryland that he's never met. Like, this doesn't make any sense. And my lawyer was like, oh, yeah, well, we'll get to that later on. And then she never did. So what I did was actually, because in reading the letter, it literally called me a danger to the U.S. healthcare system. It said I needed to buy a license from this girl. If I wanted to teach in this industry, I had to buy a license from her. Wow. Exactly. It said that I was spreading infection, that I was incompetent, that it started with the letter started with the doctor's name, saying that his name is Alex Earl. He's a double board certified, Yale prepared plastic surgeon. And it said that Alex Earl, and then she listed his cosmetic surgery center that he owns. She said, as a practicing physician at his surgery center, I have first-hand experiences with my persistent disregard for healthcare standards and yada, yada, yada. So I'm reading this and I'm thinking he wrote it. And I was just confused as to why anyone would ever do this, because this is not true. So I sent him a subpoena after I fired my lawyer. I was able to subpoena everybody who I wanted to be present for my hearing, and he was one of the people. And once his office received the letter, they gave it to his attorneys. His attorneys contacted me, and they're like, "Who are you?" And I was like, what do you mean, who am I? You sent this letter into the Board of Nursing. I've been sitting suspended, unable to make a living for 9 months. And it's because of what you wrote. And because I never could fathom that this woman would forge this letter. That never crossed my mind. But yeah, she was like, his lawyer asked me to send her a copy of the letter. And because she was confused, she didn't know. And I was like, you know what? It was a year ago. Maybe they don't remember. Here you go. He was livid. He said he felt betrayed. He said he's never written this. He didn't know anything about this. He's never met me. His role because he was a part of her regulatory body, her fake regulatory body. She pulled the wool over surgeons' eyes too. They thought it was real. So he was a board member in her regulatory body, which also made it look more legitimate, and he also sent all of his patients to her and her people for post-op care. So no one verified anything about this woman before putting their patients in direct harm's way by sending them to her. And he's not the only surgeon, and he did do the right thing in my case. So I'm not trying to drag on him, but there is a level of responsibility that these doctors should take on because of this, because no one would have believed that she was who she said she was if we didn't see her standing next to these doctors and these doctors endorsing this. And when you have a surgery and your surgeon says, oh, go to this person, you're already under the impression that they've done their due diligence. They wouldn't send you to somebody that they haven't looked into and verified. But yeah, he said he felt betrayed. He did not know that she was doing anything like this, attacking people's licenses. I told him that there were other nurses that she's done the same thing to. She's weaponized the Board of Nursing in multiple states against multiple industry competitors. And he was highly upset. And he testified at my hearing. He said the Board of Nursing never contacted him, never sent an email, a smoke signal, a phone call, nothing. They just took that letter, put it in states exhibits, and used it to take my livelihood. And then at the end of all of this, while the board is realizing that everything they thought they knew is complete nonsense, they said in their final order, we didn't put much weight into that letter. We issued an emergency suspension of her license because she didn't have adequate documentation. Haitian was, you didn't document your vitals, and you didn't document whatever. But they continue to confuse hospital policy with their regulations. There is no regulation that says I have to take a blood pressure, a heart pulse, nothing. That's what you're required to do in a hospital. And I had to continue to go to their regulations and read their regulations to them. They have a regulation about an assessment. It describes what an assessment should entail. And I was reading that same description to every single patient that came through and testified in my hearing. Would you say that this sounds like what I did for you? Yes, yes, yes. So I did what I'm supposed to do. But anyway, they said that I didn't have documentation, and that's why they issued an emergency suspension of my license. But legally, there's a requirement. If you're issuing an emergency suspension of someone's professional license because of the devastation it'll have over their life, they have to be a threat to the public. There has to be, the law says, substantial evidence of them being a threat to someone. And the only evidence that they had of that was that letter. There are no patients complaining. I'm very public with what's happening to me. All this time, I still can't find one person who has received care from me that was ever in harm's way or was harmed by me. You know, when we wrote the regulation, we likely meant to include all lymphatic drainage, because even though this is under the cosmetic surgery, the cosmetic procedure section, when you do manual lymphatic drainage, it gives them a smaller look. So they look better, which is why all lymphatic drainage is cosmetic in nature. This is what they wrote. There, next to my license, there's a PDF, and then there's a section where they have to rationalize or give pretty much explain why they charged me. And they said, when we wrote the regulations for cellulite lymphatic drainage, we likely meant to include all lymphatic drainage as cosmetic procedure. But like I told you, we use it in oncology, we use it in hip replacements, we use it in knee replacements, we use it with everybody who has any type of swelling issue. It's not a cosmetic procedure at all. And massage therapists do it without any medical oversight. So what are we?
And that's interesting too, because I think we can't get away from the fact that massage therapists, and let me know if you know, what kind of body oversees massage therapists?
Yeah, the massage therapy board. And I haven't dropped this video yet either. But yeah, there's the massage therapy board. So what I did, sent them a scope of practice clarification question. I said, hey, are massage therapists in Maryland required to have medical oversight when they perform manual lymphatic drainage? Because it's already designated as something that's within your scope. So now I'm trying to make sure that y'all don't require them to have medical orders. I know you're not, because they can't do medical procedures, but I need this in writing for my case. The Board of Massage from Maryland responds to me and says, ask a lawyer about your legal questions. That's what he said. So this is the one place where you should go to ask for scope of practice questions. So then I did a little bit of digging. The lawyers that work for the Board of Massage and that work for the Board of Nursing are from the same office. So they knew who I was before I sent that message in. But then I sent in these things called public information requests, and I told them, send me everything you have in communication between the Board of Nursing and you that has my name on it. And there were over 50 some odd pages of documents. Why the Board of Massage needs to know anything about me, I don't know. But when I posed that question, they knew who I was. The Board of Nursing actually sent them my whole investigative file. So the Board of Massage knew exactly who I was. And they said they would talk to their lawyers and tell me about, answer my scope of practice question. And they come back in writing and say, ask a lawyer. But if I ask a lawyer, they're going to come back and ask you, because you are the people who create the laws for the scope of practice for massage therapists in Maryland.
So this also opens a bigger conversation around who set these standards.
Yep.
Who in the case of something like this, where you need a clear definition of what that activity is, that's with or within, within scope or without outside of scope for that matter, and who determines that?
Exactly. And that's
right.
That is the regulatory gap that this woman saw. And that's why she created her regulatory body, because she said, the Board of Nursing isn't regulating this and the Board of Massage isn't regulating this. So I'm going to regulate this. She is exploiting a gap in regulations for her own financial gain. But it has created this entire massive, dangerous situation for patients and providers because no one is regulating this industry.
Wow. I mean, wow, this is, what I'm hoping for is that as your case continues to go through its process, not only do you have full and complete success and overcome this, But I really hope that nurses are really understanding like the business and legal aspects of what we do. A lot of nurses really don't, because we are sometimes brainwashed to believe in our learning experiences, or through our programs, wherever else we get training, to believe that because we practice under medicine, everything's okay.
My videos circulate, then people see them, and then they come and tell me about the experience that they had with this woman too. But yeah, there's a woman in the UK, and then there's a Canadian woman, and both of them, again, medical professionals who come to the US to train people for this industry. Everybody that she's attacked was doing well in this industry, and they were teaching. So yeah, this is what she does.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, I hope that everyone gets to learn something new in here. In this conversation here, I do want you to provide for me the best way for nurses to reach out to you. And I particularly, my audience is specifically nurses. I just put that heads up. Not that I couldn't, hope I impact and inspire folks to get into healthcare, but my focus is primarily on nurses. So, how can nurses get in contact with you? And what services do you provide to kind of help nurses who are interested in transitioning? I know right now you have a lot on your plate, but well, first of all, have you returned back to work yet?
That's another part. I'm on probation. They put my license on probation because they said that I performed a cosmetic procedure without medical oversight. So I cannot work outside the state of Maryland. I have to ask the Board of Nursing for permission before I take a job. I have to inform my supervisor that I'm on probation. They have to let the board know in writing that they have been notified of that. The board also wants me to check in with them monthly, whether I'm working in healthcare or not. I have to tell them how I'm making an income. And so I can't get a job because that is next to my professional license. I also can't run my business the way I used to because we are still in appeals for this. Since they're trying to say this is a cosmetic procedure, I have to wait until that's done for me to do what I would usually do. So it's a very annoying space. But one thing I can do as a nurse is teach. So they, and I know they're going to be mad about this one, but whatever. I am teaching people because they're, with me putting this on blast, it brought the entire industry to my platform. So there's people are seeing my results. They're seeing what my clients look like. And they're like, wait, you do this very well. I want to take your class. So now I'm about to launch my course. I have an online portion where you can learn the didactic portion. And then I have a hands-on portion that will be in person. And I'll be able to talk people through. And I have other nurses who I've trained from other states. We're not messing with Maryland. But they're going to come in and they'll help to facilitate the class so that people can learn how I do what I do and then also go back to their own states and continue to practice. But I'm not offering any degrees or any licenses. It's a certificate of completion. And but you'll learn a lot about how to support these patients, both in a mental health wise and physically, and how to anticipate complications so that you don't have to fix something. You keep your patients safe and healthy throughout. But that's what I'm doing. And the best way to contact me is I use the Instagram. So it's I am Nurse Stephie. That's my Instagram handle. And I also have an email address. It is admin. It's ADMIN @thebodyrn.com. And my class size is small, but the demand is large. But my class size is small. I wanted to keep it 8 to 10 people max because I want to give space for people to ask questions and to really get what they need to get from this course. It's a 4-day class because it's a lot to discuss and to see and to cover. But that's what I'm doing. But no, I cannot get an actual job. No, not with this on my license.
Well, your contact information will be at the close of this conversation, and anyone who wants to reach out to her to learn more about her experience, learn more about how to get into this industry, and learn more about how this industry needs to be developed and developed by nurses, because who else but nurses takes care of a patient after surgery?
We want to hear from you. Schedule a free consultation or send us an email at advancednurses@acd4n.com or visit our websites www.advancednurses.info or www.acd4n.com.